How's it going, everyone? Hope you're having a good day. So today we got a story that, in my opinion, it's just pretty satisfying. And what I mean by that is I always find it satisfying when someone who really has it coming to them gets what they deserve, basically. So this story comes from one of my friends where basically his cousin acts like a massive jerk for a very long time to him. And then all I can say, because I don't want to spoil it, is karma, man. This is like top 10 karma stories right here, bro. Like, when I heard this story, I was like, I gotta put this on the channel immediately. And if you don't want bad karma to happen to you, subscribe to the channel with notifications on. If you don't turn on the notifications, you won't ever see my videos, and I'd really appreciate that. And no one wants bad karma, so yeah, let's just jump right into the story, guys. So let's call my friend Eric. Obviously, that's not his real name because, I don't like using real names in stories. It just makes things easier. I think you know what I mean. Anyways, so Eric was telling me about basically what happened 2 summers ago, right? So Eric has a cousin, and Eric's cousin's name, let's call him Andrew, because I'm trying to think of names I can easily remember. Anyways, right, so Eric's has a cousin, his name is Andrew, and Andrew has a lot of money, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, man. Like, money doesn't necessarily make you a bad person, it doesn't make you someone who you don't want to hang out around with. Actually, like, honestly, if you're someone who, like, was very successful and you worked really hard and you got a lot of money because of that, those might actually be traits where I want to hang out with you because, I like hanging out with, hardworking people. However, Eric's cousin was not like that, man. Andrew, who is Eric's cousin, was, basically always got everything. His parents didn't really... I'm not going to come for their parenting style, but, man, I don't think you can really give your kid everything, even if you can literally give them everything. I think you got to, like, set some boundaries. You got to teach them, like, the value of things. So, basically, Eric's cousin Andrew, the TLDR, he was pretty spoiled at that point. And it definitely affected his attitude and the way he treated people and acted. It was just kind of bad news, man. So Eric had not seen his cousin Andrew in, about 2 years at this point. And remember, this was 2 years ago. So it has been a while since Eric had seen Andrew. But then one day, Eric's mom came and said, hey, Eric, you're going to be seeing your cousin Andrew for the summer. We're going over to their house in insert location. We're going to be there for a week. They've been very nice to let us stay over. We're going to have a lot of fun. I know that the last time you saw Andrew, he wasn't the greatest, but hey, Eric, it's been 2 years. Things can change, people can change, and this is a really good opportunity for us because when's the next time we're going to be able to go to insert location? You know what I mean? So Eric was not, like, super excited. I mean, he was kind of excited because, like, insert location was a cool place, and, he knew that Andrew's house was going to be pretty awesome. Like, he just knew that was going to be a fact. But he was also a little bit concerned about Andrew, obviously, because the last time, just, like, his interactions with him before had been subpar, and he was, like, he was open to the fact that he could change, but he was kind of questioning it. But anyways, Andrew was like, okay, Eric was like, okay, Mom, that sounds good. We'll go see Andrew and stay, at his house or whatever. That should be fun. And yeah, so basically, a couple weeks later, they pack up, they drive down. So Eric and his mom are driving down, and they eventually get to Andrew's house, right? And the first thing that they notice is, like, the driveway, because, like, I don't know about you, but, like, most of the time, house driveways are pretty short because, like, it just gets you to the house if there's even a driveway at all, right? Like, some houses don't even have a driveway. Some of them let there's a driveway to get you in, but it's not like that long. But they knew that, like, this house was going to be, like, mad different when, like, Eric and his mom were driving. They get to the driveway, and it takes them, like, 2 minutes to get to the main house, bro. Like, they were like, okay, this thing's about to be different. So basically, they drive in, they get to the house, they open it up, and Andrew's mom was like, oh, welcome, Eric's mom and Eric, we're so happy to have you here. Let me, Andrew, come down, come and take their bags. Andrew comes down, just does not take their bags, man. He's like, hey, guys, how's it going? He's obviously, like, kind of disinterested. Like, he wasn't being, like, that big of a jerk at this time, apparently. But, he was obviously disinterested. He just simply didn't take the bags. Like, Eric had to, take both the bags, even though, like, Andrew's mom was like, oh, Andrew, your guests are here. Let's go take their bags. Andrew was like, nah, bro, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. But yeah, so, the first interaction's okay. And then Eric and his mom go up to kind of like their guest floor. and they get in, and like there's an entire floor dedicated for them, that it's looking really nice. They're really excited. Honestly, Eric is like, you know what, maybe Andrew isn't gonna be the greatest, but this is gonna be a pretty fun trip. Like, we're not gonna spend all the time with them, and this should be pretty good. So basically nothing really happens that night, and the next day rolls around, and Eric and Andrew's mom decide that it would be fun for them all to go out and go to kind of like the boardwalk area, for them to go, check out some places, check out some, fun locations, whatever. And so they decide to go out, and the moms decide to go shopping by themselves, and they say, Eric and Andrew, like, you guys go off, go have some fun. And that's where things start to turn a little sour. So this is when things start to go down a little bit downhill, because right off the bat, right, Eric and Andrew, they go and, they just kind of go to this park area, and they're kind of just chilling. I don't know exactly what they're doing now, but, they're just having a good time. And until, right, Andrew kind of brings up, like, hey, do you know how much these shoes go for? And that's when Eric was like, oh boy, this is already going downhill. And just so it's very clear, I'm not shaming anyone for like liking expensive whatever, right? If you like expensive shoes, bro, if that's your thing, or you're really into, I don't know, expensive like trading cards, or you're into like stamp collecting, you like some expensive, stamps or whatever, some rare stuff. Dude, like what you like that's totally chill. But bro, it's just not like the thing to go out of your way, plus everything that Andrew's going to do in a second, just be like, hey, you know how much these shoes are? Like, bro, just like wear the shoes. And if they know, they know, dude. And then Eric was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then Andrew looks at Eric's shoes. And look, bro, Eric's shoes aren't bad. They're like, they function. Dude, they've done Eric well, right? So they're good shoes, right? They function, right? But they're not like hundreds and hundreds of dollars like Andrew's shoes are, right? So Andrew makes a comment like, how much do your shoes go for, bro? And Eric was just like, I don't know, like $50, like $60. Like that's not inexpensive. Like that's pretty expensive. Like that's a pair of shoes. Like, obviously, and Eric bought a pair of shoes that would last him. And then Andrew looks at him and just like laughs a little bit and says, okay, let's go. So Eric already kind of knows that, this might be a little bit of a longer trip than he expected, if you know what I mean. So the next day, basically nothing happens after that comment really that's noteworthy, but the next day, at some point, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I know that Eric basically says to Andrew, Andrew says to Eric, like, you're welcome for, letting you stay at my house. And Andrew was like, or Eric was like, thanks, I guess. Like, yeah, I appreciate it. I'm having a good time, Andrew. Like, that's great. He's like, and then Andrew was like, yeah, if I was you, I wouldn't want to be spending any of my vacation time in your house anyways. And then Eric was like, okay, bro, like, I like my house. He's like, so he basically responds, well, what do you mean by that? And he kind of knew he was opening up Pandora's box by saying this, but, he was starting to get a little bit upset, understandably. If you made it this far into the video, I normally have you guys comment door, but I don't want to always do that because sometimes people will just comment that without watching this far. So I'd like you guys to comment window down below, like the thing you look out of. So if you see anyone commenting door, they didn't actually make it this far. Don't be mean to them though. They had good intentions. But comment window down below. I'll also be hearting a ton of those comments. So if you want to farm some hearts, comment window. And yeah, let's get right back into the story. So then on the third day, probably the most egregious event happened so far compared to the last two. And dude, the last two comments were not that great. But this third day was probably the worst. So basically what happened was that Andrew, Eric, and their parents went into a store, and, there's a lot of different items, and the parents kind of went one way, and Andrew and Eric went the other way, and Andrew and Eric went to kind of like the shoe section, or I think it was the shoe section at least, but basically there was these like shoes that were, they were pretty expensive, right? And Eric was looking at them, and he's like, hey, these are pretty cool. And then he checked the tag, and he was like, all right, I can't be doing this. Like these are way too expensive, right? And then Andrew's like, why don't you just buy them? Eric then has to explain to Andrew that he can't be dropping that much money on, some shoes, and like he just can't be doing that, right? And then what Andrew says next is kind of crazy. What Andrew basically follows up, and he's just like, you'd be able to afford that if you weren't as lazy. And then Eric is just like, come again? Yeah, and then Andrew says to Eric, yeah, if you worked as hard as me, right, you'd be able to afford these, no question. Like, I don't even need to think about the price tag when I'm buying these shoes. The only time I look at the price tag is to know how much I'm dropping so I can tell people. He said, you just got to have the right, grind set mentality. Dude, I don't know if he said that exactly because that'd be a total meme, but that was basically what he said. Maybe he didn't say grind set, right? I think I just added that. But basically, the dude was like, if you worked as hard as me, right, you would have it. So, like, Eric was pretty mad because at this point, like, he knew that his friend had not worked, like, a summer job or he wasn't doing anything online to, like, make any money, and that obviously the dude was not working hard. Basically, his parents gave him an allowance. So Eric realized that Andrew's interpretation of working hard was existing, right? And he got an allowance, dude. And while he was justifiably upset by this comment, Eric just didn't want to get in a fight with Andrew because he realized that he still had a couple more days here and that it would have been super awkward, to get in a fight. Just look, honestly, this guy was justified to to be upset with Andrew and to not obviously physically fight him, but to fight back, right? But basically Eric was like, okay, this guy is obviously living in a different planet, like he's not down to earth at all, but I'm just gonna have a good time here. I don't want to ruin anything. I don't want to make things any bit more difficult. And here's the thing. The next 3 days go by and it's actually pretty chill. But something pretty big happened during the event I just told you that wasn't as apparent to them at the time. So basically what happened, right, is, the trip is done. Erica's mom pack up their stuff and, they leave and they're, Andrew and his mom were like, thank you guys, so thank you for coming. And then they're like, no, thank you for having us. The typical thing you parents say to each other when, a guest comes over. And as they're driving back, Eric's mom says, hey, I was talking with Andrew's mom and apparently he's getting a job this summer. And Eric was a little bit taken aback because he felt like he would have known about this, or maybe he was like, oh, maybe that explains why, Andrew was, being kind of a jerk to me earlier, because maybe he actually is working for it. Doesn't mean he's allowed to be like that much of a jerk, but at the same time, maybe he's kind of justified. And then Eric's mom goes, so basically what happened, because, Eric was a little confused and, she, saw that on his face, so she explained. So basically, Eric's mom goes on to tell Eric that Andrew's mom was, shopping around the store and that, Eric's mom went to the bathroom. So Andrew's mom went to go find the kids, right? And she goes to go find the kids and she's walking up to them. And then she kind of stops because she hears a little bit of the conversation that they're having. The conversation I just told you about when Eric was like, oh, I can't afford these shoes. And she hears her son, Andrew, say the whole thing about how, Eric would be able to afford it if he really was working hard like him. And, Andrew's mom was actually really taken aback by that comment. She always knew her son was a little bit, spoiled. She kind of gave him whatever, but she didn't realize it was this bad. So then Andrew's mom decides to go back. She thinks about it for a little while and then decides that she's going to make Andrew do a summer job this summer, and that she won't be paying for random stuff he wants anymore, so that he actually understands the true value of money, dude. And let me just say that, my friend Eric told me that on that car ride back, he had never been, happier or just been like, okay, justice is served, bro. Karma is real. And yeah, I don't think Eric has seen, his cousin, since. It's not like a beef thing. They just don't really see each other that often. But I just thought that was kind of a great ending to a pretty tough story.